let's talk about Bruno. Let's talk about Bruno because I think when we're talking about senior players and people that didn't show up in that final, Bruno is one of those names going into the match that we were like, look, he's the captain, and you've got to lead by example. And obviously, there's been a lot of question about his leadership at different points this season, and sometimes he has stood up. Sometimes in these matches, maybe in the past finals, maybe he hasn't stood up. And that is a criticism. That's a valid criticism of him. Now, obviously, there was all of this chatter about his future in the last few weeks of the Saudi possible bid, Al Hilal interested. Then after the match, you hear Bruno come out basically say, look, if I'm told I'm not wanted, then maybe I will go. Maybe I will. And suddenly yesterday it picks back up again. And today it's picked back up again with the suggestion that Al Hilal are interested. There was a report today coming out saying that Bruno Fernandes deal to Al Hilal Football Club. He's now waiting for an improved offer, allegedly. That's seemingly what his representatives had communicated to the Saudi club this week. Bruno is reportedly open to joining Al Hilal before the Club World Cup, which is not that long at all. Remember, there's the window that opens on June the 1st till June the 10th, I think it is. And we could expect a bid maybe, and there's the gap between the current bid and Bruno's expectations, according to this report, they are not that big, with a deal set to be expected to be watched, they're saying, in the next few days. Wait and see. James, because of what happened on Wednesday, is this now one of those situations, again, like with Garnacho, where, look, if the right offer comes in, and again, it's north of 100 million quid for a 30-year-old, and we need the money, we need a rebuild, and it's not to say that just because of one final it negates 19 goals and 19 assists this season, but it might be the sacrificial lamb. Do you think there is something in the Bruno one now? Maybe?
Well, I think that it changes the conversation a bit, mostly because him, right? He wants to win trophies. He wants to win things. Now, I don't understand going to Saudi if that's the case, regardless, by the way. But at the same time, I think, well, if you're not going to win trophies at United, it might be nicer to earn, 5 times the money and set up the future generations, of your family for a few years of working in Saudi. And I think that's really the question. Would it be only them? I'm not sure. He had offers from Barcelona. He had offers from Bayern. If Bayern are not getting Florian Wirtz, maybe they'll start to be interested again in Bruno Fernandes this summer. So I think a bit of it is up to him, because I was asking that question in the aftermath of the game. Why stay? I start to look at that from his perspective. What are you going to stay for? United are not going to be good enough for you to be winning things before it may be too late in your career. And you have to ask the question from the United perspective then. If 3 years from now we want to be competitive, we can't be relying on Bruno Fernandes as the main guy by that time. You've seen, with City, obviously they've had so much more to replace Kevin De Bruyne. They still kind of struggle with the fact that he's not the main man anymore in the years since, with his injuries and things that have happened. We can't be in a situation because we don't have the squad, we don't have the depth, we don't have the number of options to say, well, what happens if we start to rebuild a team around Bruno Fernandes and 3 years from now he's not that good anymore? His body, which has held up remarkably well for the amount of minutes that he plays, starts to actually pick up some injuries, starts to actually fall down a little bit. It happens to everybody. You can't beat age at the end of the day. That's the one thing that nobody can get past. And I don't know. I honestly do not know the answer to this. I do know that it feels unlikely that Bruno can be the main man for us when we're good again, that we'll be good again quick enough for that to be the case. And I think that means I'd still leave it up to him, I guess, in that case. If he's got a good offer, he wants to take it, who are we to say no at that point in time?
KG, what do you think? Would you cash it on Bruno? It depend, like kind of what James is saying, on what Bruno wants. Is there a reason for him to stay? Particularly now with what happened on Wednesday.
I think obviously Wednesday was a dark, but potentially one of the greatest blessings in disguise. Literally, like, I wanted the full storm, guys. I wanted to paper off those cracks. I was ready, plaster up, all of that stuff. I wanted that more than anyone.
Those things, you know what I mean?
I wanted that more than anyone. I wanted to paper over those cracks because I like winning silverware. It's a great feeling, yeah. But the reality of the situation is, this club has been heading its direction for the longest time. We've been slow walking into the situation, and now it has to be addressed. What is provided, I wouldn't have sold Bruno had we got into Champions League, because you need a player like that to now, like compete in this kind of, do something in this competition. And you can bring in better names that he can pass to. We don't have that as an option anymore. Man United are a lower league side that are trying to be a mid-table, trying to be a European. I'm talking a different Euros conference and Europa. That's where we are right now, unfortunately. Yeah. He can't be here for that rebuild. We can use Bruno as, this could be our potential Coutinho moment where you sell and you bring in players of not that thingy top level, but trying to get back in. Forget about Manchester City, Arsenal, all these other teams. We're too far from them. We have to establish ourselves, unfortunately. But it's just the truth of I said a little while back before that we're not as good as Brentford and these teams. I remember me and Flex, I remember the argument time ago.
Yeah,
and,
it was a while ago, yeah.
And well, look at us now, So having a player like Bruno, we're talking about, if you're saying a rebuild, a serious rebuild and a structural one, that's a high contract. Get it out. There's him, Casemiro. Is there any more high contract left? Over 300? I don't believe there's
the ones on loan, right? Like Rashford and
out. Now all are out and workers. 1 game a week. Let's rebuild this team. Because even if you say, well, there's no right now, if you're a failure, we can sell you as a player and you're attractive to other teams. We can't even do that because of the contracts people are on. That has to literally, the whole pay structure of Man United in this dark moment here in rock bottom, let's fix everything. Let's literally, and I love Bruno, but then Bruno can now look and say, well, Ivan Toney has still has a chance to play competitive football while being in Saudi. If the Portuguese manager understands anything, Bruno can still add value while being in the league that he's playing in. So then
Ronaldo plays, doesn't he? So
Ronaldo plays. Yeah. So then there you go. So it's like it's not for a Premier League an English club, an English team. I think going to Saudi is like the death sentence before. But now Tuchel's proving something different. Bruno, generational wealth, doesn't have to deal with the shit anymore. He's done everything he can, and we're still shit. He still had a stinker. That doesn't take away his stinker, but he's been the best player this season. We're still 16th. Bruno, thank you for your service. See you later. I don't want to get relegated, by the way. There has to be someone else will appear. We lost Van Nistelrooy, a new guy appeared. We lost Mason Greenwood, Ahmad appeared. There's always going to be a new player that says, hey, guys, I can play football. Are you with me? So with where we are in the rankings, I say take the risk.
I think also as well, the fact that, he was openly saying, because it's funny how this works with players, isn't it? After like a final, they suddenly do go into kind of self-preservation mode and they sort of do jump the sinking ship quite quickly. And you see Garnacho come out, basically try and engineer a move. Bruno suddenly being maybe a bit more open to a move, and him saying, look, if they accept an offer, then I'll go. I don't want to leave, but if they tell me that they need it, they need to because they want to cash in. I think even the words were cash in. Then
he was always open, though.
Exactly. Exactly.
That money was too big to turn down.
Exactly. So that's why I think that, and I think it's pure profit at this point on Bruno, because obviously the initial contract, what have you, has been paid off and transfers have been paid off. So that's when you are looking at, there are, as obviously you'd want to have won the Europa League to get into the Champions League, get that extra money, bigger pool of players, but there are options to still fund spending this summer, legitimate options. Bruno, north of £100 million for a 30 million for a 30-year-old player. That's difficult to turn down. Garnacho, homegrown player, 60 million quid, 50 million quid. It's tough to turn down. Obviously, then we get into like the Rashford one. He's going to go. That's pure profit. It might be like 40, but it's 40 plus getting those wages gone. Sancho, I think the amount of money is pretty low to get pure profit on that one. Anthony, I think they said to get a profit on him, it's like 30 odd million, which actually, given what he's done in La Liga in this loan spell, you could probably get that for Anthony.